have a lot of energy, so you could say good morning with a lot of energy. My name is Johnny Torres, and I represent an organization that we call Save Latin America. Save Latin America is very much concerned with the well-being of our community. Because we're concerned with the well-being of our community, we're very concerned with our youth. And if we are concerned with our youth, obviously we are very concerned also with your education. And we're very concerned about the fact that 30% of Hispanics are dropping out of high school without a diploma. And that is sad. And that is sad because there is a lot of talent. There is a lot of energy. There are a lot of beautiful lives that are being wasted when you drop out of school. Whether you realize it or not, whether you believe it or not, there is a reality in life. The reality is that each and every one of you is a genius. You are a genius. I'm not being funny. I'm telling you the truth. There is a genius within each and every one of you craving to come out. And you, many times, don't give that genius the opportunity to surface. And that is sad. And it's sad because you, whether you want it or not, you represent the future. And you are our leaders of the future. And our leaders of the future don't believe in themselves. If they don't believe that they are geniuses, but then we have reasons to be sad. Now, how many of you have dreams? Terrific. Terrific. Now understand one thing. It's one thing to have a dream, it's another thing to have a wish. A wish is a myth. A dream is something that you have to work for. I had a dream when I was a little boy. I wanted to be an interior designer. And everything I did in my life was geared toward becoming an interior designer, and I did become an interior designer. As a matter of fact, I think I was the first Puerto Rican to graduate, to get a degree from NYU as an interior designer. Now, how did that happen? I wanted to be an interior designer, and I dreamed of it, and one day suddenly somebody handed me a piece of paper saying that I was an interior designer. No, my dear young friends, it took a lot of work, it took a lot of sacrifice, I did a lot of studying, and let me tell you one thing else. Not only that I wanted to become an interior designer, but being a Puerto Rican was a little harder to become an interior designer. I had to work harder. But you know what, my dear friends? I believed in myself. And what I'm asking you today, first of all, is to believe in yourself. To believe that there is a genius within you, and that you have to believe in that genius, or really, you have to believe in yourself. That's number one. And then you have to organize and discipline your life to become whatever it is that you want to be. My little boy wanted to be a doctor. Since he was this high, he wanted to be a doctor. Well, he graduated Columbia with honors, and he is a gastroenterologist practicing medicine already for about 20 years. And a very successful Puerto Rican doctor. He worked hard for it. And if you see that, if you think that the two role models that I'm going to be presenting to you in a little while did work hard, you have it wrong. They work very hard. Number two thing that you should take out of this meeting today. Whatever you want, you should work hard for it. Nothing comes easy. Life is not about being easy. And then you could say, well, Mr. Torres, I'm very young and I like to play and I like sports and I like to be in the computer. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't have a computer then, but I played, went to the movies, I practiced my sports, and I did everything. But I understood that if I wanted to be an interior designer, I had to work hard, and I did it. So today, you're going to hear two speakers. They are going to share some of their life experiences with you. That's their job. My job is to introduce them. Their job is to share with you some of their life experiences. Your job is to listen and make mental notes, because you are going to be invited to do something that I know you love to do. You're going to be invited to write an essay. Now, wait a minute. You know, you just proved to me that you're very normal. Because when I was your age, you think I didn't like to write? No, I didn't. I did like to write. So you just proved to me that you're very normal. However, you have to learn, and this is number 3 that you should remember from this meeting. You have to discipline yourself. And what is discipline? I understand discipline as doing those things that are the right things to do, even if you don't like them. But let me tell you something else. Life is about choices and consequences. I said that you are going to be invited. I didn't say that you have to write an essay. You will be invited to write an essay. Now you have to choose. And you may choose not to write an essay. But you know what? Life is about choices. And every time you decide to do something, you have to suffer a consequence. Now, you may not write the essays, and the consequence is that you're going to deny yourself the opportunity to be invited to dinner with your parents and your brothers and sisters and your principal and your teachers, because what will happen is that I will pick, the school will give me the 10 best essays of this group. Now we will select the best 5 essays. Notice what I said 5? I would say it's only 3. But every time I come to this school, the essays are so good that I've been giving you 5. So I'm telling you that I believe in you, so therefore I'm offering you 5. 5 of you will be invited to dinner with your parents and your brothers and sisters near your age, and your principal and your teachers will be there, community people will be there, and the role models today, the speakers today will be there, and they will present 5 of you each with a plaque. So now, you have been invited. You choose to write that essay. Now, you are giving yourself the opportunity to win a dinner with your family and your teachers and a lot of community people and leaders and to receive a plaque. My question is, where are the 5 people from this audience that I'm going to be inviting for dinner to a nice restaurant soon? Let me see those hands. Terrific. Well, you could be proud of this. Hey, teachers, look around. You should be proud. You have the best of West New York over here. Very good. Now, I was talking to a group of 7th graders a few years back, and I told them, you do have the potential, you do have the mental capacity to accomplish whatever it is that you want to accomplish in life. A little boy in the front raised his hands. I recognized him and he says, sir, I'd like to be a doctor, but I am a Dominican. My parents are divorced, and I am black. What chances do I have to be a doctor? And you know what? That reminds me of a story that I read in a magazine about this young lady. Her name is Ana Escobedo Cabral. Ana Escobedo Cabral is Mexican. She is one of 5 children. Her parents hardly knows how to read and write. Her father used to earn his living by collecting garbage in the neighborhoods and selecting pieces of metals and things that he could then turn into monies. And this is how he used to support his family. This little young lady, Ana Escobedo Cabral, was 9 when she said that she decided that she wanted to be, later in her life, she wanted to be an employee of the White House. And when asked, what do you like to do when you grow up, Anna? And she says, I like to be an employee of the White House. Everybody laughed at her. And everybody reminded her that she was a poor Mexican, born out of a very poor family, parents that could hardly know how to read and write, a father that was collecting garbage to earn his living. But Ana Escobedo Cabral didn't mind that people laughed at her. She believed in herself. She had a dream. And she kept on working toward that dream. And she understood clearly one thing, that in order to be an employee of the White House, you had to be well educated. And she struggled. But she kept on working, and let me tell you what happened. I'm sure that you have seen a $1 bill. A dollar bill. I have in my hands here an enlarged photograph of a $1 bill. I asked my photographer to photograph a $1 bill and enlarge it. And this is it. Now, every dollar bill is signed by the Treasurer of the United States. So this bill do have the signature of the Treasurer of the United States, and I'm going to ask this young lady over here, she looks like a princess. I'm going to ask this young lady here to read the signature in this.
Ana Escobedo Cabral.
Ana Escobedo Cabral signs this bill. But you know what? Ana Escobedo Cabral is able to sign that bill today because she believed in herself, because she had a dream, and she understood that being poor, the fact that her father and mother were not well educated, was not an impediment for her, because she understood that there was a genius within her, and she has to work to get that genius to the surface. She also signs the $50 bill. All right? But you know what? Huh? He wants a real one. Now, but you know what? She also signs the $100 bills. So she signs billions and billions of dollars as a treasurer of the United States. The daughter of a very poor Mexican family in California. Now, my dear friends, the reason I'm telling you this story is because as I glance around the room, I see a lot of Ana Escobedo Cabrals in this audience. Now, how many of you have dreams? All right. Who wants to be, let's say, who wants to be a doctor here? Terrific. Who wants to be a lawyer? Terrific. Now, you know what? From today on, you're not going to say, I like to be a doctor. You're going to say, from now on, you're going to say, when I become a doctor. So you have to be positive. When you say, I like to be, that's not good enough. You have to say, when I become a doctor, I'm going to have an office in this building. I'm going to have so many nurses, etc., etc. I'm going to be, in my son's case, a gastroenterologist. I'm going to be a cardiologist. Whatever medicine you like to practice, you have to start now saying you are going to, when I be. If you want to be a lawyer, yes, when I'll be a lawyer. When I'll be a teacher, I'm going to treat my students just like my teachers treat me. Nice. This is putting the number again. Now, this program, Wishing Our Dreams, brings in community leaders as role models for them to share their life experiences with you. We have two wonderful speakers today. As they speak, you are going to be making mental notes. You have to be, because your essay is based in this program, in what the speakers will tell you. And then the essay is 250 words maximum, 150 words minimum. Don't give me 10 pages. You're going to be disqualified. 250 words maximum. Don't give me half a page. It's not going to work. It's going to be disqualified. I need minimum 150 words. You have to identify yourself, the class, the teacher, and then write the essay. So I like to bring my first speaker, who happens to be a young lady that is very much into education, a very dear friend, and this lady drove 2 hours to be here today for you. Let's give Yvonne Diaz, Dr. Yvonne Diaz. This is what I say. Dr. Yvonne Diaz. She looks like a princess. Let's give him a big hand. All right.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Good? Good. I actually have a few confessions to make. One, when I was in 7th grade, I didn't know what I wanted to be. But I knew I loved one of the subjects that I went to school to study, and it was math. Who likes math? Great, wow. Okay, so now we have something in common. First thing. Second confession. Tomorrow I'm going to be 40 years old. So why am I telling you that? I'm telling you that because when I was in 7th grade, my adventure started. I see education as an adventure. I promise you it's an adventure. I'll tell you, I'm going to show you by my life, my example, that education is an adventure. And it can take you anywhere you choose to go. Okay? So ready, 7th grade, I love math. I was trying, I didn't have to try hard. I just went to my class and did the work. I had a teacher, she was hard work. She really wanted to make me work hard. And the more work she gave me, the harder I worked. Then I went to study pre-calculus. That's a very fascinating math subject you will get to learn some soon. And when I got to pre-calculus, what happened was that my teacher told me, my pre-calculus teacher told me, I bet you cannot be as good as your brother. My brother was A+ in pre-calculus. He's 1 year older than me. And I thought, wow, what a welcome. So what do you think? I did better than my brother, and I went on to get a PhD in mathematics to show my teacher that I can also be maybe better than him, right?
Now, the truth is that I didn't know I was going to do a PhD in math. That's why I say it's an adventure. When I was in high school, I didn't know where I was going. I knew I liked math. So it was a decision time to go to college. And my mom and my dad had their own business, of course. They're saying, Yvonne, why don't you do a degree in business? We can use you here. And I started the first week. I went to study business. Believe me, by the second week, I changed. And guess what did I choose? Math. And many people discouraged me because they said, what are you going to do with a degree in math? You have very limited options. But I didn't want to believe that. Math is just too amazing for it to limit my possibilities. So I studied math. It was 4 years. Now, Johnny mentioned, you have to work hard. And you do, but you also have to do things that you like. So if you like soccer, then play soccer while you're going to the university. Yeah. If you like collecting stamps, then form a group with other people that like collecting stamps. Now, do you know what I loved to do when I was in college? You're not going to believe this. But I was doing fashion modeling. I was going to the hotel and doing a fashion show. So I was in TV commercials. I was making little money. I was saving it. I was doing, but I took my calculus, my algebra, my numbers theory, my real analysis. All these are math subjects. I did that, I took my class, and then half hour later, I did my show, and then 2 hours later, I was back in my books. So I stayed focused, even though I balanced, because I did things that I like, and I did, the math that I also like, but in a different way, right? So then it was time to, what am I going to do after college, right? So what happened next? I heard that there's this amazing company in the United States called AT&T. And by the way, I was in Puerto Rico throughout all of these that I'm telling you. I'm from Puerto Rico. So I heard that all my friends that were studying engineering were going to AT&T for summer jobs. And I said, come on, if they're going, why can't I go? So I found a friend of a friend of a friend that took my resume and put it under the pile with all the engineering students. You know, you have to take risks, right? You have to just be a little bit creative at times. And guess what? I got my summer job. I went with other 9 engineer students to Chicago, Illinois for my summer job. Now, here I am, my English, very, very rough. Not an engineering student. So do you think I had fears, doubts? Yeah, I was like, what am I doing here? But at the same time, it felt exciting. I felt that all that energy, that worrying also turned into, what if I do it? What if I do really well, you know? So I actually did it. I'm not sure what my project was, but it looked like the way I approached it, it was the right way, because I was told I did a good job. So I came back to University of Puerto Rico, finished my bachelor's, and I got a job with AT&T. And now the adventure gets even more exciting. Because when I was in the airplane, somebody had got me a book called The Mathematical Tourist. And I was reading this book and it seemed very interesting, you know, math, exciting, tourist, that sounds like me, you know, a tourist through education. And what happened is that I got the opportunity to work on a project. They told me in AT&T, you can have like 1/6 of your time to work on a special project. So now, let me ask you, who here have seen the movie Jurassic Park? Okay. So I want you to watch it again and look carefully for the mathematician in that movie. There was a mathematician that was telling everyone Jurassic Park is not going to work because there's something called chaos theory. Chaos theory tells you that small changes in a system can create catastrophic results. And for example, in weather, why do you think it's so hard to predict the weather? It's all about math, it's all about chaos theory. And it's because a butterfly flying in Africa can cause a hurricane in Puerto Rico. And that, if you want to learn more about that, then you can call me or start reading about chaos theory. In any case, that's what I wanted to study. So what I did, I wrote a paper to my boss and I said, I want to work on this project. And he said, okay. Could you believe it? I mean, the last thing I thought is that they would say yes. They said yes. They took them like 24 hours to tell me yes. So I was like, all right. And what I did is I found out who invented chaos theory. I looked through contacts. The internet wasn't so great back then, so I was making calls, and I found out that the guy that named Chaos Theory Chaos was going to be in a conference in Washington, D.C., such and such date. So guess who went to Washington, D.C., such and such date? Yes. And as soon as I arrived, looked for Jim York. I looked for Jim York, and they told me, Jim York is the guy with the red socks. Yes, and you know, they say mathematicians are eccentric, and I have found a lot of that. So the guy with the red socks, as soon as the guy with the red socks was sitting down and had a 5-minute break, I went and sat by him. And I started telling him about the project that I started putting together in AT&T and so and so. And I would, you know, how much I love to learn chaos theory. And he told me, come to my university, do a PhD in math and study chaos theory with me. Wow, that was great. So that's what I did. I actually went back to AT&T and told them, I think I'm going to get my PhD in math and I'm going to study chaos theory. So I applied to University of Maryland and I went to University of Maryland. And over there had very challenging times. There was one time I did so poorly in an exam, I thought, oh my God, I can't do math. I'm not good enough. I have friends from Russia and Germany. I had some really good friends, mathematicians from Mexico and from Portugal. And then there was me. So I had that challenging moment where you are, oh, can I do better? So what did I do? Seek help. I went to my professor. I told him I don't understand this subject. I talked to my friends. I didn't sleep for a while, studied harder, and I got a B+ in the class, so I was pretty happy about that. So you're going to find times where your dreams are going to seem that they're getting harder, but it doesn't mean that they're not possible. It means that you need to do a little better in certain areas to get there. So after that, I actually went to another university. I went to Arizona State University. And when I was there, my adventure continued actually. In there, I got some people from Intel Corporation. Have you heard of Intel Corporation? Intel is a company that, creates all the chips that go inside your computers. All the computers have something from Intel. So they were very interested on the research, what I was studying in math and chaos theory, and they actually paid for part of my education so I could finish my PhD. So do you guys know what a PhD is? No? So PhD is after you study, your bachelor degree is 4 years, then usually you do a master's degree if you want to study, specialize more, maybe 2 years, and then you can still study another 4 years or so and be more specialized. But what is key is when you do a PhD is that you have to invent something new. Could you believe that I invented something new? I still can't believe it. So if I can do it, believe me, any of you can do it. So that's what a PhD is. You go and study a little bit more specialized in an area until you find a place where there's questions that have not been answered. There's so many questions that have not been answered out there. And then you work and try to answer that question. And that's what I did. So I was very proud to graduate. And now I get called doctor sometimes, even though my dad says, I cannot call you doctor. You cannot write me a prescription. So I'm not going to call you doctor. But I am considered a doctor in philosophy with a degree in mathematics. So who knew when I started talking here that I was a mathematician? Have you ever heard? You knew? Right? Is it my face? No? You guess? No, many people, there's not many people that you ask, what you want to be when you grow up, and they're going to say, I want to be a mathematician. Because, it's kind of like, what is a mathematician anyways? So let me tell you that math is everywhere. In the banks, in the industries, in business when you have to keep your inventory down because you don't want to have massive of inventory in your store because that's money sitting on the store, right? If somebody doesn't have the product and didn't give you money for it, it's sitting in the store. That inventory, so keeping inventory down, that's an important task in a company. You guys have examples of where else you see math? Want to raise your hand, give me an example? Yeah? In a supermarket, when, for example, where? In the cash register, you're counting money, obviously, yeah? In the streets. Okay, I'll tell you about that. Do you think the roads are there just by default? Or do you think someone said, look back and say, what are the optimal ways to get from one place and another? There's a lot of math in creating highways and where are the best places to put in. If you ever gone on an airplane, could you imagine how do you predict how many people you're going to have to go in an airplane so you don't have empty airplanes every day? That's math. You don't want to have a bus company that has one person every time you go from Chicago to LA, right? You want your bus, if you have 24 seats, you want 24 people there. But what about if you really have 50 people that want to go from Chicago and LA? You cannot have just one bus with 24 seats. Your customers are going to be upset. All of that is math. So with that, I thought I'll give you the opportunity to ask me any questions, and then I'm going to have the opportunity of someone else talking to you. You have any questions? Yes? What did I invent? What did I invent? It's going to be a little bit hard to explain, but I'll give you an idea. What I did, I discover, because they say mathematicians, what they do is that discover things that already exist, okay? So what I discovered was that when you have a big industry, like you have a manufacturing of products, you're manufacturing Game Boy, you're manufacturing a computer game. You have a system of machines, and they're put in different ways. And I discovered that sometimes the way the production, the output of your system doesn't look predictable. Like for example, today you see two machines color red, two blue, two red, two blue, and all of a sudden you start seeing three red, three blue, five red, one blue, and things start a bit kind of crazy. I showed that, this is hard to explain, that's a good question. I showed that even though these look unpredictable, okay, it looks like you cannot predict what's going to happen. What has happened is that you have a periodic behavior that has such a long period that when you look at it, it looks random, it looks crazy. But when you look at it from far away, you have a really long period. So hopefully that gives you an idea. But it was in relation to chaos theory and manufacturing systems. So I found an application for chaos theory in manufacturing systems. I could talk to you more about that if you're really curious, okay? Yes? All right, so it looks like I need an invitation to talk about math here. Can we do that? All right, so I'm going to take up on the challenge of next time I come to talk to you, for those who want to know more, I'm going to tell you much more about chaos theory alone. And I'll bring you examples and pictures so you can really understand. But go in the internet if you can and search for the butterfly effect and chaos theory, and you start learning some fascinating things. And that's my adventure. I didn't mention part of my adventure, but I just wanted to mention it real quick. I went to University of Puerto Rico, yeah? I went to University of Maryland, and I went to Arizona State University. But I also have a master's from Cornell University. So what does that tell you, you know? You can go as many colleges you want, as many universities you want. The idea is to be open to the adventure and let it take you anywhere life wants to take you. So thank you for listening, and good luck with your careers, your adventure.
My name is Mark Flores. I'm a police officer here in the West New York Police Department. Today I've been invited to come to talk to you about dreaming and, quite honestly, your future. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I want you to know where I came from. I'm very proud of where I came from. And hopefully, maybe some of the things that I say, you'll be able to maybe look at your own life. Maybe we'll have a few things in common. And then you can use that to realize that there are other people in this world, there are adults in this world who've experienced some of the same things that you've experienced, and they're very successful today. I am the son of Domitilo Flores. My dad is Puerto Rican, I'm proud of that. My dad came to this country, or moved to the United States when he was 15. He came to New York City, where he settled down, lived with his sister for quite a while. And I'm also proud to say that my parents, because at the time that they grew up, they weren't as educated as, I guess, you know, we encourage young adults to become today. My father had to work very hard his whole life. Neither of my parents graduated high school. But again, that's something that we can learn from. And I was raised in a way where I was always encouraged to be better than my parents. And that's not critical at all. It's not critical at all, because those were instructions that I was given by my parents. And hopefully, you've heard the same thing. And it's not critical of your parents. It's something that your parents want you to be. You know where your mom came from. You know where your dad came from. If they moved to the United States from another country, they brought you here because this is the greatest country in the world. And they want you to be as successful as you possibly can be. That's why you're here. I know that's why my father moved up to New York City, because he was looking for something just a little bit better. But remember what I said about the education. And again, the time was quite different than today. But because they didn't get that education, they had to work very, very, very hard. And notice I said work, because that is what they did. My father worked for most of his life 3 jobs. You'll say to yourself, well, how could you possibly work 3 jobs? My father was a custodian in one of our schools, several of our schools here in West New York. Now, that's an honorable job. And he worked very hard at that. His day started quite early, 6 o'clock in the morning, getting here, many cases, before you got here, to make sure that the building was warm, so that when you walked in, you were in a comfortable building. His day ended about 4 o'clock. He would go home. If he didn't have other responsibilities in the building where we lived, because his second job was being the superintendent of a large building, 45 apartments. So if he didn't have something to do between 4 and 6 o'clock, maybe he'd rest, or maybe he'd fix someone's toilet, or fix someone's sink, or get ready, to throw away the building's garbage. And then at 6 o'clock, he would go to another job where he'd work as a security guard from 6 to 12 at night. Now, you do the math. Work until 12, having to be back up at 6. For many years, you can see that he worked very, very, very hard. My mom worked very hard as well. She was a matron, which basically meant that she was working in a school where she was responsible for cleaning up the school. Then she became a bus aide, then ultimately a secretary. Why I tell you this is because I just want you to see what, that there are other people out there who come from the same background, okay, that many of you come from. And you can become very successful. I'm proud of my parents. They worked, they had honorable jobs, and they inspired me because they raised me in a way where they wanted me to be better than them. And I can look in the mirror today and say, thank you, parents, that I've done that. Now, I grew up on Boulevard East, 6045. Boulevard East and Highland Place. I had a great, upbringing. I went to number 6 school, where I had some very good teachers. Quite honestly, earlier years at number 6 school, I wasn't in my prime, to put it that way. But as I got ready to leave number 6 school, I had some great teachers. I also matured, quite honestly, a little bit. Mr. Schmidt, Mrs. Stunig. They were great teachers who really encouraged me and gave me a different perspective on life. Now, I realized that, hearing my parents say, we want you to be better, we want you to be better, we want you to be better, that the only way of being better is by getting it through education. I've heard other speakers say, that there's no magic wand. No one's going to wave a wand over your head, and all of a sudden, you're going to have that certificate or degree on the wall. It all comes through work. Now, I told you a little bit about what my parents did, and I'll proudly tell you this. And it's also, affected me and inspired me. Growing up, seeing Dad work as hard as he did, quite honestly, I'm the youngest of 5 children. 5 children. 5 children. I just got done telling you, quite honestly, the lack of education. I just got done telling you how hard my parents worked. I'm sure your parents worked as hard too. It affected me. There were things that I had to do as a son growing up to assist my family. If my father was at work from 6 to midnight, again, we were the superintendent of this large building. There were many nights where I'd be playing with my friends on Highland Place, and I was called in with my brother. Imagine being called in with your brother, being taken away from playing with your friends, and have your friends watch you pick up the building's garbage and throw it out on the street. Not very pleasurable, really isn't. Now you have a choice. You can say, this stinks, this is unfair, you can pout, you can moan, you can complain, or you can do something about it. And you can look at yourself and you can say, I'm doing it because I'm part of this family and my dad needs my help. But you can use it to motivate yourself to make sure that you, as you become an adult and you have children someday, that you encourage them and inspire them to be better so that they don't have to do what you did. And my friends, I'm sure that is the way you're raised. That is what your parents want for you. They want you to be better. They want you to have an easier life than their life. And I'm proud to say that my life is easier. My life is better. My children, I have a daughter who is 13. She's in 8th grade. She has not had to do some of the things that I did. And that's fine. That is okay. Because that's what happens in the generations. That's the goal. Okay? I'm proud to say I am better off than my parents. And I would be extremely proud one day if my daughter was standing up here as the doctor, as the lawyer, as the engineer. Because that is what parents want for their children. Now, I explained to you a little bit about where I came from. I think it's clear to see that you know that my parents weren't well off. Because they weren't well off, quite honestly, I used my childhood to become a better adult. I started working, again, like I said, the parents didn't have it financially. I started working at the age of 12. I worked in the Boulevard Gourmet on 60th and Boulevard East, where I cleaned shelves and swept the floor and mopped the floor. But I did it because, like I said, my parents didn't have it. And there were times 20 years ago, actually it's more than 20 years ago, that's high school, I'm sorry. But many years ago, the lunches weren't what they were today. And honestly, my parents financially didn't have it. I didn't have the newer sneakers or jeans, and sometimes I didn't want to eat the school lunch. And I needed a few dollars to, buy lunch at 2 from 6 at 62nd and Broadway. But that's where I came from. And I'm proud of that, okay? You've got to realize that, as you grow up, okay, there are decisions that you're going to have to make. And obviously, we want you to make the right decisions. When I became a police officer, then I became a detective, then I was assigned to the Juvenile Bureau, where for many years I was the DARE officer. I enjoyed that job. I really did. I enjoyed that job so much because I was in front of 5th graders. And you know the DARE program, I'm sure many of you have had it, talking about staying away from drugs, and drugs are bad. Talking about consequences and risks and thinking about things before you go ahead and do it. I enjoyed that so much because I felt like it was an opportunity to talk to you. Talk to you to make you realize that life is full of consequences. And I enjoyed trying to make kids realize that you have to think before you go ahead and do things. One of the things that I know, without a doubt, from being a DARE officer and from working down the Juvenile Bureau, is that you're going through very difficult times. You know, you have your parents talking to you about get an education, get an education, get an education. And that's great. Your teachers do the same thing. But then you leave here and you deal with some of your friends who unfortunately try to unravel and pull you in a direction opposite your parents and your teachers. What I really want you to think about and always remember is it's cool to be smart. It really is. It is absolutely cool to be smart. You see, I know what you're going through. At your age, it's the class clown, it's the tough guy, it's the tough girl, it's the class bully. They're, at your age, the people who in your mind are cool. And the kid who gets good grades, and who studies, and maybe who doesn't get into trouble, well, he's the nerd, or she's the nerd, or he's the geek. I know what you're going through. And you know what? Nothing has changed. It was that way when I was in your seat. But I want you to fast forward about 10 years. Fast forward, you're 7th graders, you're 12. I want you to fast forward about 12 years. I just want you to think about listening to what your parents have told you to do. Okay? Think about, where you come from. Think about getting that education. About 10 years from now, you're going to be 22. You're going to be graduating college. Okay? You're going to be possibly getting a job and or choosing to continue on with school. And when you get that job, you're going to be successful. And as you drive north on Hudson Avenue, there is a good chance that you're going to see the person who's your age, who was the class clown 10 years ago, who was the bully, who didn't care about school, who didn't care about an education. As you're driving by in your nice car with your education in hand, with your certificate and diploma on the wall, you're going to see that person standing on the corner. And that's what you got to realize. You have to get your education. Don't be distracted by the class clown. Don't be distracted by the bully. See, right now they may be funny, but I can tell you that funny does not pay bills. Being the tough guy or the tough girl doesn't pay bills. And in the total scheme of things, when you're 22, 23 years old, if you're able to say, wow, as you're standing on that corner, I was really cool in 7th grade. People just thought I was a barrel of laughs. Isn't that great? That won't get you anywhere, my friends. That really won't. That is not what counts. That is not what's important. What's important is you stay in school, you get your education, because the education is the key to the future. Not being cool, not being the class clown, not being the tough guy, not being the tough girl. That means absolutely nothing. So, I thank you for allowing me to come today and talk to you. I want you to realize that like I said, I came from, a tough background, or a background where at least it wasn't a wealthy background. I was encouraged to work. I worked hard. I became a police officer. Served the community in the form of being a dare officer. And it's only through hard work and effort, my friends, that you're going to reach your goal. Work hard, do the best that you possibly can do, because education is the key to your future. Thank you for allowing me to come today.
Great. Let's hear it hard for Sergeant Flores. All right. We're close to the end, but we're going to do a couple of things, and one of them requires you're almost quiet and attention. First, I'd like to invite to the front one of your teachers, Mr. Goyri Zelaya, Fred Goyri Zelaya. Come to the front, please. The reason why I wanted to invite Mr. Goyri Zelaya to the front is because he is one of the founders of this program, and he is on our Education Commission. He's been with us about 9 years, right? 9 years. You know what? He was an accountant. But about 10 years ago when I met him, he says, I'm going back to college. He went back to college. And he finished 4 years. And he's still going back to college for something else. Now he suddenly, I think he's interested in real estate. All right? Just to study, just to help his wife. Now, I like to invite, and this is where you have to be very quiet, I like to invite to the front all the teachers in this room. All the teachers in this room, please come to the front. That at home you have mother and father, and then of course you have other members of your families, grandparents, etc., that loves you. And Sergeant Flores was saying how much your father and mother loves you and the things they want you to do because they care for you. Also mentioned that in the street, the best friend you could have is who? I forgot who I told you. Thank you for reminding me. A police officer is the best friend that you could have in the street. At home, you have mother and father. But then, you know what? Then you come to school. And you have this group, beautiful group of men and women that went to school, that's some of them at your age, their mind was already made up. I want to be a teacher. And they kept on studying. And my dear friends, make no mistakes. They went through many of the problems that you think you may be having right now. But they kept on studying and reading and making papers and writing essays and exams, and they became teachers. Today, their job is to pass on to you what cost them a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice, and I dare to say, many of them, a lot of tears. But you know what they do today? They are helping you mold your lives. And in the process, they become attached to you. And to this group of men and women in front of you, you are very important. And you know what is the best present you could give them? The apple is okay. However, the best present you could give them is that A, that 100 in your exams. The higher you grade, the better they feel. So how many of you from now on are going to be working very hard, especially in those subjects that you think you're weak, to give